there's one side, I think it's growing. I think we're here. I think we've always been here. Of course we have. Like we were here in 1660 when the Filipinos jumped off the ship and went to Louisiana. And we've always been myth making. But in terms of Filipino, like American literature, in terms of the publishing world, like in May was the Asian American History Month. And on the New York public library's list, they put, or Asian American books to read, they put Memoirs of a Geisha. And they put also other white writers writing about Asian American themes. And so it puts into question, what is Asian American literature? And we had this really heated discussion at Kundiman this past, so it actually was very triggering because a lot of us stood up and were really angry, and I was one of them. And like the definition, we wanted to be open. We were like, Asian American literature means Asian American is writing it. That's what Asian American literature means. We don't have to write about transnational issues. We don't have to write about war. We don't have to write about all these different things. It can be whatever we want to write about, and that equals literature. But a scholar was like trying to be more pragmatic. He was like, well, I'm a scholar, so I'm trying to like find out the flavors and like, these are the recurring themes and stuff like that. So we kind of had a really, but if anyone else wants to jump in.
I feel like, okay, well, I'll just plunge it. Like, there's this Peter Greenaway film called The Cook, the Wife, the
wife and his lover.
Yeah, right. And in it, this master chef is gonna cook this thing, and he's like, oh, and I forget her name, but he's like, Madeline, like, she must be here. She has to taste this thing that I'm making. And then his assistant was like, why? Why does she have to taste it? And he was like, she has a beautiful palate. And it was like that he was making this thing, but he needed somebody to like taste it and appreciate it and understand it. In terms of Filipino-American literature, I feel like oftentimes when we think of the state of Asian American literature, I mean, the first anthology of Asian American lives by Asian Americans was in like 1973, like IE, right? Like, this was not that long ago, right? My hope, I guess, is that what we'll see, what you guys being here is part of this history, right? That you have makers, but then you have people that are there to receive it. I think what's happening now is that Filipinos, Filipino-Americans are being activated towards writing. Oh gosh, I wanted to say something else and I don't remember what it was. Maybe if I remember later.
I mean, the only thing I can say about it is that as a writer, and then just coming out of the MFA, just seeing so many fellow writers, I mean, that have always been established, but also that are coming up, and we're all connecting together and talking about this and wanting to go to workshops in the Philippines. It's that the state of Filipino-American writing, just like the Asian American writing, is that it is. Like, we're in the state, basically. We're living in the state. But as you said, like, someone has to receive it, or we have to find better ways to, I guess, explore the state. Like, it's a big-ass state. So we're like, and it seems like we're just in this one little city. And that's how it feels.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was going to say, and then, okay. Before I forget it, like, I feel like, okay. So I was reading this biography of John Adams, right, when he was in Spain, trying to raise money for the new American Republic, right, because patriots were going to lose the war. And so he was trying to get France to recognize us, right? Anyway, so Benjamin Franklin was there, and he was like the toast of the town. He spoke French, everybody loved him, and John Adams wanted to talk about like money and the French were like, why don't you like talk about literature, talk about, and he was like, I study war, I study economy so that my children and their children after them can study poetry, can study fiction. I feel like oftentimes when like, I can say this about my parents, they came here, they were just trying to survive, and the fact that we can be here and talk back into their stories, it's a way of honoring all that they did to leave everything that they knew, Okay.
I think it's in a really good place. I want to add something to this conversation because I've seen the growth of especially Filipino writers in the U.S., fil-am writers, if you want to call it that. There's just more and more of us. And I think we're getting really, really good. I think the quality is so high right now, and I think there's a real range of voices. And I think, organizations like yours, Kundiman, that nurtures young writers and, novelists and poets and whatever, Vona, the workshop right here, that has really helped build. And it's not just New York. I mean, when I go back to San Francisco to see my community there, there are writers there, but I think, when I first came to this country, there were like 5 of us, okay? So, I mean, and it's because people were busy trying to survive. They weren't thinking about, I must write my novel now. It takes a certain sense of timing and a little bit of privilege to step back and be the person that's going to tell that story. But now there's just so many. And, the attention from publishers, stop worrying about it, because it's going to happen, or they're not paying attention to anybody. If you're talking about mainstream publishers, it's always tough. It's going to get tougher because nobody's reading. And it really is a economic problem, too. So there's less and less books being published, except by the same old people. Yeah. So it looks like there's a million books out there. There really aren't. Yeah. And so it's going to get tougher for all of us, but the point is, it's also going to make innovations happen. So you're going to get a press like this that helped you do this book, and there are going to be people who know how to do it and who are going to want to do it for love and not just money. So it's a really important time, and I think there's really something happening with our culture in this country and the many, many writers that are coming forward. It's a test who's going to last. Because you've got to love it. It can't be about, who's doing me or how many fans do I have. You've got to write because you're going to write, because you have to write and you have to tell those stories. And I think I'm just seeing more people with that kind of commitment now.